Hi, I'm Sarah Nash, and I'm here today with Lisa Konstadt, who recently published a book, Flat as a Pancake. And Lisa is an author and a teacher, educator, and she is a breast cancer survivor who went flat about 12 years ago, before there was really a flat movement as we know it now, before there was really much information available about the flat option, and certainly before there was a robust community to help women make that decision and adjust to it. Lisa, I'm so happy you're here with us today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Will you show us your book and read the full title? I like the subtitle as well.
So the book is called Flat as a Pancake, My Story of Breast Deconstruction, How I Lost My Boobs and Found Myself.
Tell me a little bit about kind of what motivated you to spend so much time writing this memoir.
Okay, I'm
Hi,
just
Kitty.
laughing.
Yeah.
I knew one of them would make an appearance shortly, and there he is. Um, so what motivated me to write the memoir was really my seeing that I didn't have any books to read when I was going through this. And I talk all the time about this afternoon that I went to Barnes and Noble after I had decided to have a mastectomy, looking for books that I could read, stories of women who had gone flat. And I couldn't find anything. And it was really in that moment that I decided that I was going to write this book. And I wanted to write it as a so that there was never going to be another woman standing in Barnes and Noble not being able to find a book.
I think what really, because there have been a number of books that have recently come out about various aspects of going flat. And I think from the reading that I've done, I would say yours is by far the most personal.
It's very,
And
yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
I think that even though as I was reading your story, I could relate to parts of it, and parts of it I didn't have a lot of overlap with you. The the fundamental kind of idea that stood out to me was kind of, how do we make decisions?
Hmm.
And it was almost like the anatomy of a decision
I
was
like that.
big.
That's a good title.
Yeah.
The Anatomy of a Decision. Yes, absolutely. That's probably was like the kernel at the crux of the whole thing, because I I really grew up as a child who was very anxious and who really didn't trust my own decisions. And and okay, now he's trying to climb on me. Um and I um my parents were, they were not overbearing parents. They were incredibly loving and supportive, um but they also had very strong opinions about, like, the best Ziploc bag to use, or the best toaster, or the best blender. And so as I started having my own ideas about toasters or Ziploc bags, um, I sometimes was met with, what are you talking about? This is the best one, or this, which, among other things, caused me to sort of doubt my own decision making capabilities. So in the book, I tell this story about needing to buy a new alarm clock. My alarm clock had broken, and I was an adult. I was in my 30s, and I kind of went into this panic about this broken alarm clock, because my first instinct was to call my parents and ask them what to do. My alarm clock broke. What should I do? I don't even know what kind of alarm clock to get. And in that moment, I actually went as far as to pick up the phone and then slammed it down and said, my God, what the heck am I doing? I should be able to buy my own alarm clock, right? And that's a decision. That this is what we're talking about, is that ability to make a decision. And I went and I ended up buying my own alarm clock, and I made the decision. And it sounds like such a small thing, but when I was walking home from the store, there was just this like feeling of freedom and elation that came over me because I had made this decision without consulting anyone, right? Like I hadn't talked to anyone about it, gotten anyone's opinion. I just did it. Fast forward, years, and I'm sitting in my breast surgeon's office, and she's telling me that I need another tissue excision and another tissue excision to try to get all the DCIS cells out. And I find these words tumbling out of my mouth. Well, then I want a double mastectomy. And I was kind of like taken aback by my own kind of conviction in that decision. There wasn't anyone who I had taken to the appointment with me. I didn't say, well, let me think about that and call 100 people and get all their opinions and I'll get right back to you. It just came out of my mouth that that's what I wanted to do. And that same feeling of elation from buying the alarm clock to there, I felt it again. And then again, when I made the decision to go flat, and I talked to my plastic surgeon about that. So yes, there is like this very important idea about making decisions. And for me, that was very connected to inner voice.
And I think you do a nice job of sharing some intimate examples of times where you didn't listen to your inner voice and overrode it. Mm-hmm. And I think acknowledging that overriding process starts early. It starts with parents, and then I think especially as women can continue through adolescence, where we're having sexual experiences and we haven't really learned fully what consent is, mm-hmm. or have the empowerment yet to wade through those gray area situations. Yeah. And so I am a rape survivor as an adolescent, and I really resonated with just some of the murky interactions that you had with older men, and then kind of figuring out a healthier relationships, healthier dynamics, and then also this push-pull with your body that I imagine so many women can relate to, of like our appreciation of our body can depend so much on how other people are perceiving us or valuing our body. Mm-hmm. And so I think all of these threads or strands, or you talk about it as like snowflakes that add up to form the snowball. Mm-hmm. It seems like when you're sitting there and you're deciding whether or not to go flat, it's all present somehow. Like it all intersects. All these,
and that's the snowball. And that's really what I wanted to do in my book. Was I wanted to take the reader through the journey of building that snowball so that they would be able to appreciate exactly what you just said. I'm sitting here in this office, and the reader is going to remember all those snowflakes that went into this moment of who I am now and this decision that I'm about to make. So yeah, I mean, it's, I think that's why the book had to be so personal. It had to be, and it was not easy to write with such candor and such honesty and frankness about these experiences. Um, exactly because of something you said. Like in my mind, I kept thinking, you know, what are people who I know really well going to think when they read these stories? And, they're very intimate stories about me, and people that I work with are going to be reading these stories. But I just kept thinking about the types of stories that move me as a reader are the ones that are like brutally honest. And I just knew that I had to be brutally honest in order to get this point across. Um, and just in terms of the decision making, again, there's just, it's when I made the decision, my breast surgeon was very supportive. She didn't question it. She said, if you want a double mastectomy, that's exactly what you can do, right? And so I felt very steady in my power at that time. But then when I talked to my plastic surgeon and I said that I didn't want to do reconstruction, I was immediately questioned. And not just by him, but by other, physicians' assistants, even friends, when I made that decision. So then I didn't feel so steady in my power, because suddenly I was like, uh-oh, wait a minute. Am I making the right choice? Like fear started creeping in, right? And when fear starts creeping in, I think you can often choose the safer decision in your mind, what you think the safer decision is, right? And that's another reason that I really wanted to write the book, is that I chose the decision I chose, even though I was afraid and I didn't know 100% how I was going to feel. I didn't know if I was going to be depressed or if I was going to be happy as a flat woman. I didn't know. How can you know? But I chose it anyway. And when I had started joining these Facebook groups and reading the stories of all these women who had decided to do implants and now were getting explanted, a lot of the stories that I was reading, the women were saying that they did it because they were sort of they had a lot of fear, and they were told by people that they were not going to be happy and they were not going to be feel good about themselves, and so they gave into that fear, and they made the choice that they thought was going to be the safer choice. And I just want to try to give women the courage to listen to their inner voice and make a decision not based on fear. And I want to be clear also, like, I'm not coming out and saying everyone should be flat or advocating only for flat. What I'm advocating for is for women to listen to their inner voice and make a decision based on that. And if their inner voice is telling them that they want reconstruction, then they should go for it and see what happens down the line. But don't do anything because you're being scared into it.
And you brought up happiness. You didn't know if you would be happy as a flat woman. But your book really is a lot about, asks the question, among others, what is true happiness?
Yeah.
And ends there, which I found a really lovely ending. And I think it'd be nice for you to talk a little bit. So you've been flat now for 12 years. Don't regret it. It absolutely was the right decision for you. And what have you learned about true happiness, your true happiness?
Yeah. Well, one thing I've learned is that no one knows what truly makes another person happy. What makes people happy is different from person to person. So I find it every day, I find it more and more absurd that a surgeon can sit and tell you whether you're going to be happy or not, right? I just, I find it, I find it absurd. So what have I learned about happiness? I mean, I think what I've learned about happiness is kind of what I already knew all along, which is that it really has more to do with a feeling for me. It has more to do with a feeling that arises within me when I do certain things. Um, and I pay attention to, oh, yeah, I'm having that feeling. And for me, the feeling, I mean, I would have to say that the feeling is really like an endorphin rush. That's what the feeling is to me. And I experienced that for the first time through meditation and having a really intense meditation practice years ago. I started feeling those blissful feelings of this endorphin rush when I was meditating, and I just was like blown away by it. And I then started noticing, oh, I'm having this same feeling when I'm walking in the woods. Oh, I'm having this same feeling when I'm sitting by a fire with a really nice cup of tea in a nice mug, like when I pay attention to the small things, I have that feeling. And to me, that feeling is happiness. And I don't need breasts to experience that. So that's what I learned, you know, about me. And I kind of I feel fortunate, again, going back to the snowball. I feel so fortunate that I experienced that experience through meditation so many years before having to make my decision to go flat. That was one of the snowflakes, right? And so when the surgeon said to me, you may not feel happy, you may, you know, I already knew that that probably wasn't true, because I thought back to, wait a minute, you know, I know what makes me feel happy, and it was because of that past experience. So yeah, I mean, I just posted on my Facebook page the other day, any breast surgeon who tells a woman that she's not going to be happy without breasts has never sat on a meditation cushion.
Well, I think that that gets to the question of values that often are unexamined until we start sitting down and looking inside.
Yeah.
Like, our culture tells us that we couldn't possibly be happy without breasts. I
Hmm.
think our mainstream culture,
Hmm.
and that we can't possibly be happy without that new tube of lipstick or the latest car, or that there's this emphasis on the external as being the source of our contentment.
Hmm.
And it it's easy to just kind of get caught up in that, and it can often be, ironically, it can be a crisis of health or of love or loss that causes people to reevaluate what really matters.
Yeah.
And and I think that when you're going through cancer treatment, especially if you have to make quick decisions about reconstruction, it's there can be so much conditioning there
Hmm.
that people may not have ever had that groundwork laid to have the breakthrough of like, it's sad to see women who are have gone through hell with reconstruction and are now explanting.
Yeah.
That many of them say, I had a doubt about whether this was right for me, but I
Mm-hmm.
got talked into it, or I
Mm-hmm.
like that there was, I don't know, I it's sad to me that the breakthrough has to come after a lot of additional suffering for some women.
Yes, I agree. But at least it comes, you
Yeah.
know. But yeah, it's really hard to say, like, we don't have control over when a breakthrough comes, right? Because we don't have control over everything that made us the person we are up until that moment. Like all the experiences in your life, you have control over some of them, but not over all of them. So everyone is on a different path. And, that's why I feel thankful that my breakthrough came before. Um, and I kind of wanted to trace the path of that breakthrough. And I'm hoping that when people read my book before their surgeries, maybe it gets them kind of thinking about their past in a different way and looking at things in a different way. And maybe someone has a breakthrough before, it's my hope.
And I
Yeah.
think similar to women who have explanted or are explanting, like their breakthroughs are leaving a trail in the forest too for all of us.
Yes.
That it's possible that maybe it doesn't. Maybe the important thing is to eventually have that breakthrough, however it comes, and
Yeah.
that there's room to kind of have that at various points on this journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's a part of my book where I say, um, would I have been able to, would I have learned to kind of put myself first and take care of myself? Would I have learned that had I not gotten cancer? And I say that I would like to think that I would have, um, but I don't know. And I don't know how soon that would have happened for me, you know? So I think you're right. It is kind of, I mean, everyone who goes through a moment of crisis talks about that same thing, that it was the catalyst to get them to see things in a different way.
Is there I think you've really created an important contribution to this emerging literature, and I'm I'm grateful for you. When I first met you, I was joking because I had originally thought about writing a very personal story, and I was both happy that you did it so I don't have to, and a little jealous. But I am truly relieved that it's out there, because I think it offers it's not a guidebook. It offers a a way to actually kind of deconstruct
Mm-hmm.
your own personal decision making process,
Yes, I like
and gives a lot of permission to think about the nuances of what has gone into who you are, who your reader is, and how they
yeah.
do or don't navigate with inner authority.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it's an
Yeah,
invitation. I mean, it is an invitation to connect with that inner authority.
it is. It is an invitation. And what I'd say to you is that your story, should you ever choose to write it, will also be an invitation, because you're not me, I'm not you. Your story, I never could have told your story, right? Because I'm not you. And I think the more the better. I mean, we need as many women telling their stories, however they're going to tell them, be it a guidebook, be it a memoir, be it a personal story, whatever it is. We need more of it so that there's like an arsenal.
Yeah.
Because, we do come up against a lot of controversy through the medical community.
Yeah. Fierce Flat Forward founder Christy Avila, she has a quote she loves. It takes 1,000 voices to tell a single story.
Mm.
And I think about that now as you're talking. Just
Yeah,
yeah, there's room for all kinds of stories and to help us get to critical mass.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for telling yours and spending this time with me.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been great.